Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is February 21st, 2026. And I was looking at the calendar this morning, and if the global vibe feels a little, I don't know, vibrationally intense to you right now, there is actually a historical precedent for it.
You are talking about the lunar calendar.
Right, exactly. The year of the fire horse.
That is the one. It is a 60-year cycle, so the last one was 1966. And in Chinese cosmology, this isn't just about, energy or speed. It is specifically about the breaking of tethers. It is a combination that favors the rebel, the outlier, and these really sudden, aggressive shifts in direction.
Breaking tethers is a very polite way of putting it. I have seen it described as a cleaning fire. And looking at the stack of documents you sent over from the Sunday Blender, I mean, the metaphor fits a little too well.
It really does.
We aren't just seeing new tech releases today. We are seeing the complete dismantling of the institutions that held the last decade together.
That is absolutely the through line for today's deep dive. Because whether it is the legal framework of Hollywood, the biological baseline of our oceans, or the corporate structure of Silicon Valley, the fire horse is basically kicking the stable door down.
Let's actually start with the stable door that got kicked down in San Francisco this week. The whole Peter Steinberger saga.
Right.
On the surface, this looks like a standard, big tech hires indie developer story.
Yeah.
But you flagged this in our notes as a massive signal flare for the entire industry.
It is. It is the definitive signal that the chatbot era is dead. Long live the agent era.
So for the listener who hasn't been obsessively tracking GitHub repositories, Peter Steinberger is the solo developer behind OpenClaw. He built a framework that got something like 1.5 million active agents in a single month.
Which is an insane scaling metric for one guy.
Right. But the spicy part, and I just love the corporate irony here, is that he built it entirely on top of Anthropic's model.
He was their biggest champion. I mean, he was driving massive inference revenue to them, completely unpaid evangelism.
And instead of sending him a fruit basket or a thank you note, Anthropic sent a cease and desist over the name ClawdBot.
Which was a fatal strategic error, because while Anthropic's legal team was busy drafting trademark complaints, OpenAI's recruitment team was drafting a massive equity package.
Yep.
And as of the 15th, Steinberger is officially leading the personal agency division over at OpenAI.
But let's double-click on why this actually matters for you and me. This isn't just about talent poaching in the Valley. It is about what Steinberger actually built.
Yeah.
Because OpenClaw isn't a chatbot. It doesn't just predict the next token in a sentence.
Exactly. It plans. That is the crucial distinction here. A chatbot talks to you about booking a flight. An agent actually authenticates into the API, checks your calendar, finds the best price, and executes the transaction.
It takes action.
Right. Steinberger cracked the planning loop, the ability for the AI to reason through a multi-step process without hallucinating halfway through and forgetting what it was doing.
Which has to terrify the incumbents. Because if the value moves to the agent, the thing executing the work, then the underlying model just becomes a commodity. Anthropic just becomes a utility provider, like the electric company, while OpenAI, with Steinberger, owns the actual relationship with the user.
That is exactly it. It is the commoditization of the brain and the premiumization of the hands. OpenAI is betting that the future isn't about who has the absolute smartest model, but who has the model that can actually do things in the real world.
And this tension, this race to control the infrastructure of doing, it was so visibly on display at the AI Governance Summit in India this week.
Oh, the Global South Summit. This was so significant because it wasn't held in London or Paris. India is really positioning itself as the bridge here.
Right, they aren't trying to build the frontier model itself. They're building the digital public infrastructure where all these models have to live.
Which perfectly explains Google's $15 billion check to India. That is not R&D money. That is infrastructure money. They are buying the rails.
But the human element at the summit was where the real story was for me. Did you see that group photo op with Prime Minister Modi?
The awkward hands photo.
Yes. It was physically painful to look at.
Yeah.
You had Sam Altman from OpenAI and Dario Amodei from Anthropic. They were standing right next to each other, but their body language was just screaming, "Get me out of here."
They were visibly avoiding any contact whatsoever.
It is petty, but it is telling. These guys are supposed to be collaborating on global AI safety, and yet they cannot even fake a smile for the camera. It really tells me that the commercial rivalry has completely eclipsed any safety cooperation at this point.
Well, the fire horse doesn't do cooperation, it does competition. And speaking of competition, if the U.S. is fighting over software brains, China has clearly decided to win on hardware brawn.
We have to talk about the robots. Because every year, Elon Musk gets on a stage and says Optimus is coming, and every year we get a video of a robot folding a T-shirt very, very slowly.
Exactly.
But the footage from the CCTV Spring Festival Gala in China was, it was completely different.
It was a massive flex. The Spring Gala is the most watched television event on Earth. And this wasn't some sterile tech demo, it was a full-blown performance. You had humanoids from Unitree, Galbit, and Magic Lab doing fully synchronized kung fu routines right alongside human martial artists.
And backflips.
Backflips, complex sword handling, dynamic balance recovery when pushed. The message they were sending was very clear. We are not in the lab anymore, we are out in the world.
And for once, Musk actually admitted it. I was reading the transcript of the Tesla earnings call from last week. Usually he just dismisses the competition entirely.
Right.
But this time, he openly admitted no Optimus robots are doing useful work yet, and he called the Chinese robotics progress an ass kicker next level.
That is the highly technical term, yes, ass kicker.
But why now? I mean, we have seen Boston Dynamics do this kind of acrobatic stuff for years. Why is this specific moment the tipping point?
It comes down to the price point and the supply chain. Boston Dynamics builds Ferraris. They are beautiful, incredible machines, but they are expensive. Unitree is building Civics. They are driving the cost down to a point where these things can actually be deployed in regular factories. And the financial markets in Hong Kong picked up on this reality immediately.
I saw that rotation. The old guard of Chinese tech, companies like Alibaba and Tencent, they were completely flat or even down. But the AI pure plays.
Zhipu surged 43%. Minimax jumped 15% in a day. Investors are actively dumping the Web 2.0 giants and pouring all their capital into embodied AI. They genuinely believe the fundamental hardware problem is solved. Now it's just a manufacturing race.
So we have agents taking over the digital desktop, and we have robots taking over the physical factory floor. But the area that feels the most immediately destructive in that cleaning fire sense we talked about is the creative industry.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to talk about Seedance 2.0.
ByteDance basically dropped a nuclear weapon on Hollywood this week.
I watched the clips they released, and we are not talking about the uncanny valley, Will Smith eating spaghetti monstrosities from 2 years ago. This footage is indistinguishable from a $200 million Marvel movie. Did you see that viral clip of Tom Cruise fighting Brad Pitt in a Waffle House?
I did. The dynamic lighting, the fluid physics, the voice cloning, it was completely flawless. And of course, the Motion Picture Association is already screaming about copyright infringement.
Disney and Paramount sent legal threat letters almost immediately. But here's my actual question to you. Can you actually put this back in the bottle? Rhett Reese, the guy who wrote Deadpool, who is not a doomer by nature at all, he literally went on record and said, it is likely over for us.
He is right, but maybe not for the exact reason most people think. The disruption here isn't just that the AI generates good video. It is that the marginal cost of production is going to absolute zero. For a century, Hollywood's main moat was that it cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make a massive spectacle. Now, a teenager in a basement can generate that exact same spectacle for a $20 monthly subscription.
It reminds me of what happened to music distribution back with Napster. But this is happening to the actual creation process itself.
Exactly. And look at Google's Project Genie. This didn't get quite as much mainstream press as the video stuff, but it is arguably more significant for the entertainment economy. It is generative gaming.
This is their no-code engine, right?
No code, no game engine, no pre-rendered assets. You just type a text prompt, and it generates a fully interactive 3D world complete with gameplay mechanics, physics, everything in real time.
Yeah.
People were literally creating knockoff Zelda games and Grand Theft Auto clones instantly.
And Google's trying to play it cool, saying, oh, this is just an early research preview.
But the financial market did not buy that spin at all. Traditional video game stocks slid significantly this week because the implication is so obvious. If I can dream up a custom game and play it instantly, why do I need a massive studio to spend 5 years and $500 million developing it?
So if spectacle becomes chip, if anyone can make a blockbuster movie or an open-world game, where did the actual value go? Because the money has to go somewhere.
It goes to trust, and it goes to distribution. Which is exactly why the most important entertainment story this week isn't even about AI, it is about a YouTuber.
Markiplier.
Mark Fishbach, yeah. He finally releases his film, Iron Lung. He self-financed it, no studio marketing, no traditional PR machine.
And the numbers are just staggering. He spent $3 million to make it, and it pulled a $43 million return, hitting #1 at the box office. But The metric that really blew my mind was the revenue split. He
Mhm.
reportedly kept 50% of the box office.
That is the paradigm shift right there. A traditional Hollywood director gets a few points on the back end if they are incredibly lucky. Markiplier got 50% because he didn't need the studio's distribution machine. He is his own distribution machine. He has 74 million subscribers.
So if we connect these dots for a second,
Yeah.
ByteDance is giving everyone the tools to make the movie, and Markiplier just proved that you don't need the studios to sell the movie. The entire middleman economy of Hollywood is basically being squeezed to death from both ends.
It is a classic pincer move. The gatekeepers are actively losing the gate. The complex tools of creation are democratized, and the massive channels of distribution are personalized.
It really is the creator economy graduating into blockbuster economy. But while the creators are clearly winning, the fans are kind of losing their minds. We have to mention the IMDb war.
This is such a perfect example of modern tribalism in the digital age. Breaking Bad versus Game of Thrones.
It is incredibly petty, but I love it. So the Breaking Bad episode Ozymandias has been the undisputed perfect 10 rating on IMDb for 13 years.
Unbeatable. Right up until the new Game of Thrones prequel, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms dropped an absolute banger of an episode. The Breaking Bad fans got insecure about their spot and started review bombing the prequel.
And the Thrones fans immediately retaliated by bombing Ozymandias. They actually got it to drop to a 9.9.
It is just mutually assured destruction. But the punchline is the best part of the whole story. While these two massive fandoms were busy destroying each other, the 6 Feet Under finale quietly floated up and took the overall #1 spot.
It's pure poetic justice.
Right.
And frankly, 6 Feet Under absolutely deserves it.
It really does. But this whole idea of rewriting history brings us to another form of upheaval. We have talked a lot about digital disruption, but I want to pivot us to the physical world, because that fire horse energy seems to be manifesting in the actual crust of the Earth right now.
It has been a brutally violent month for the planet.
Yeah.
We're seeing what climate scientists are now calling a volatile baseline.
Exactly. The old historical averages just do not apply anymore. Look at the tragedy we saw in the Sierra Nevada, the avalanche at Castle Peak.
That story really shook me. 9 people dead. And what makes it so heartbreaking is that it wasn't a group of reckless teenagers ignoring warning signs. This was a group of highly experienced backcountry skiers, mostly mothers and wives from the Bay Area. They did all the prep, they checked the reports, they had the right gear.
And the mountain still slid. A slab the size of a football field just gave way. It is a terrifying reminder that our historical data regarding safety is becoming less and less reliable. We're seeing these so-called 100-year events happening every 3 years now. The environment is just becoming more energetic and far more unpredictable.
You see that same unpredictability with the infrastructure too, like Highway 1 in California. The Regent Slide finally reopened, only to close again just days later due to massive mudslides. There was even that impatient driver who got completely stuck trying to navigate it. And you see it in the ocean as well. I read this wild report from NOAA and the University of South Florida about the algae blooms.
Sargassum belt, right.
Yeah. They aren't just saying there's more algae this year. They're concluding that the ocean has fundamentally changed its chemical composition to actively prefer slime.
It is a complete regime shift. They tracked a 13.4% annual growth in these macroalgae blooms. The ocean is warming, agricultural runoff is increasing, and the water is effectively turning into a giant petri dish that favors these massive, choking weeds over traditional marine life.
It feels like the Earth is rewriting its own source code at the exact same time we're rewriting our digital code. And honestly, even the distant past isn't safe from being rewritten. We have to mention the Spinosaurus discovery.
Ah, the hell heron.
Right. We all grew up thinking Spinosaurus was this majestic aquatic swimmer, like the crocodile of the dinosaur world.
We did, but this new discovery in Niger, where they found fossils 1,000 kilometers away from any ancient coastline, completely flips that narrative. It wasn't a graceful swimmer at all. It was a wading predator. Basically a 40-foot stork with a giant scimitar crest on its head, just standing in the shallows, picking fish out of the water.
It is a great reminder that scientific fact is very often just current theory waiting to be updated.
Precisely. The past changes as we learn more, just as our future changes as the climate shifts. And speaking of shifting our horizons, some of us are actually getting off this volatile rock.
Artemis II.
March 6th, we are finally going back.
It feels very appropriate for 2026, breaking the ceiling, moving forward. I mean, it is the first time humans have left Earth's orbit since 1972.
The crew is Commander Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. It is a crew of historic firsts: the first person of color, the first woman, and the first non-American to ever go beyond low Earth orbit.
It is a 600,000-mile loop. They aren't actually landing on the moon this time, but they are proving that we can still do the incredibly hard things.
And I think we really need that proof right now. With everything feeling so chaotic on the ground, we need to remember that expansion and exploration are still possible.
Speaking of expansion, and cultural expansion specifically, we really cannot ignore what happened at the Super Bowl halftime show this week.
Bad Bunny.
This wasn't just a concert. It felt like a coronation. The first halftime show headlined by a Latino solo artist, and it was performed almost entirely in Spanish.
And the viewership was absolutely massive. 128 million people tuned in. It really solidifies a cultural shift we have been tracking for years now. Latin American culture isn't a niche crossover event anymore. It is mainstream American culture.
He brought out Ricky Martin, Daddy Yankee. It was this massive celebration of heritage. And honestly, it felt like another old rule biting the dust, the unwritten rule that you have to sing in English to command the biggest stage in America. That rule is just gone.
Just like the rule that you need a major movie studio to have a blockbuster, it is all connected.
Let's wrap up with sports today, because the Winter Olympics in Milan are officially closing tomorrow. And Norway is just, honestly, it is getting slightly ridiculous at this point.
They are definitely showing off 17 gold medals. That beats their own previous record. For a country with a population smaller than Minnesota to dominate the world stage like that, it is statistically absurd.
But the Olympic story that really got me emotional, and I think this connects beautifully back to that firehorse theme of breaking barriers, was Ning Zhongyan.
The Chinese speed skater.
Yes. He completely shattered the 1,500-meter record, the first Asian athlete to ever win gold in that specific event. And his quote afterwards really stuck with me. He said, "It felt like there was a mountain in front of me, and today was the day I finally got over it."
That is beautiful. And on the slightly lighter side of the skating world, we definitely have to mention Benoit Richaud.
The man of many jackets.
Yes, this incredible choreographer based in Nice. He currently coaches 16 different skaters from 13 different countries. The broadcasting cameras caught him constantly changing his team jacket every few minutes, swapping from France to the US to Mexico to Georgia.
He is basically a mercenary for art.
He had a great quote, too. He said, "As soon as they step on the ice, I'm in their world. I have to respect the hustle."
Absolutely. And just quickly, back in the U.S., the NFL season wrapped. The Seahawks won the Super Bowl.
Sam Darnold's redemption arc is finally complete, going from seeing ghosts on the field to winning the ring. But honestly, the defense really won that game for them.
Yeah, they did. And on a much more serious note in the sports world, looking at soccer, Vinicius Jr.
Yeah. The Real Madrid versus Benfica match, another awful racism incident. Vinicius accused a Benfica player of using slurs, and the game actually stopped for 10 minutes. It is his 18th formal complaint since 2022. It is a sobering reminder that for all our technological progress, some of the very ugly parts of human nature remain incredibly stubborn.
It is a fight that just keeps happening year after year.
It really is.
So stepping back, we have covered AI agents, kung fu robots, generative video, space travel, algae blooms, and the total collapse of the Hollywood studio system. What does this all mean for the listener?
Well, as we sign off, I actually want to take us back to today's date, February 21st.
A historical anniversary.
Right, February 21st, 1972. President Nixon landed in Beijing. It was the very first time a U.S. president visited the People's Republic. It shattered decades of strict isolation, and it completely reshaped the global power structure overnight.
It was a moment where the entire world opened up.
Exactly. And here we are today in 2026, the year of the fire horse, and the world is opening up all over again, but in a totally different way. It is opening up to artificial agency, to synthetic realities, and to these new, unpredictable biological truths.
And speaking of Chinese history, I love that the art of the week mentioned in the source material is Yu Beihong's ink horses.
Which is such a perfect parallel. Yu Beihong painted his horses not as symbols of rigid imperial power, but as symbols of freedom and resilience. In his paintings, they are always galloping, their manes are flying, and their hooves are barely even touching the ground.
A nation in motion.
World in motion. And that actually brings me to our final thought for the listener today.
Let's hear it.
We talked about OpenClaw moving from just talking to actually acting. We talked about Markiplier moving from just influencing an audience to owning his own distribution. The overarching theme of this Firehorse year is agency. The technology is no longer waiting for permission to act. The creators aren't waiting for permission to publish.
So the real question for you, the listener,
In
is,
this new landscape, are you still just talking about what you want to do? Are you sitting around waiting for a gatekeeper, a boss, a publisher, or a studio to give you the green light? Because the clear lesson of 2026 so far is that the gatekeepers are gone and the tools to build whatever you want are already in your hands. Are you waiting or are you acting?
that is definitely something to chew on this week. Happy Year to the Fire Horse, everyone. Go out there and make something happen.
Thanks for listening.
Catch you in the next deep dive.